The little white school shuttle was still attached to Dock Ring 6 when the Council sealed the corridor. By the time Pavrin Is reached the observation glass, the human girl aboard it was already dead. Nobody was screaming. That was the part Pavrin would remember. Council security officers stood beneath the red containment lamps with their rifles lowered. Dock workers had been pushed against the bulkheads. The shuttle's outer hatch remained closed, its cheerful blue educational markings absurd beneath the emergency strobes. A human consular officer stood alone outside the security line. He was staring at the shuttle. First Convener Malrek Davin arrived 4 minutes later, surrounded by aides, guards, and enough authority to make everyone else move aside. Pavrin did not. He was the Council's senior fleet registrar. Every military hull operating under Council authority passed through his office eventually. He had spent 19 years learning that power was rarely located where politicians believed it was. Davin looked through the glass. What happened? The security commander straightened. The human vessel attempted departure after the containment order. It is a school shuttle, Pavrin said. Davin glanced toward him. I can see that. There were students aboard. Were? The commander swallowed. One casualty. The human consular officer finally turned. His face was pale. Her name was Iris Danner. Nobody answered him. She was going home. Davin's expression did not change. The Council had issued a temporary departure freeze after negotiations with Earth collapsed that morning. Human diplomatic personnel had been ordered to remain until the Council completed what Davin called a strategic review. The school shuttle had already been cleared for departure before the freeze. Security revoked the clearance while it was still docked. The pilot attempted to disengage. A weapon had been fired. One human girl had died. There were 1,000 political explanations available for what had happened. Pavrin hated all of them. The consular officer took one step closer to Davin. Who gave the order? The security commander looked at the floor. Davin did not. I did. Pavrin felt something inside his chest tighten. Not because Davin admitted it. Because he sounded proud. The human officer stared at him for several seconds. Then he asked, "Do you understand what you just said?" Davin's mouth curved slightly. I understand exactly what I said. The human looked back toward the shuttle. He did not threaten Davin. He did not mention fleets. He did not invoke treaties. He simply touched 2 fingers to the communicator at his collar. Embassy control, he said. Confirm Iris Danner. Confirm Council authorization. Send both to Earth. Davin almost laughed. Send whatever you like. The consular officer looked at him once more. I will. Pavrin had seen governments make mistakes. He had seen them make catastrophic mistakes. But he had never before watched a government recognize a catastrophe and deliberately step farther into it. The emergency council session began less than an hour later. Davin called the girl's death a regrettable enforcement outcome. The human delegation called it a killing. Davin demanded that Earth accept the council investigation before taking any unilateral action. The human ambassador asked whether Davin denied giving the order. Davin said he did not. That should have ended the argument. Instead, it became the argument. Delegates from dozens of member governments filled the ascending rings of the Grand Chamber, while military advisors whispered behind them. Every surface in the room carried the council crest, 3 interlocked arcs surrounding a central star. Unity through common authority. Pavrin had registered that crest on more warships than he could easily remember. He carried a small mechanical tally in his coat pocket, a primitive device older than the current council charter. Every time a member government assigned a capital vessel to permanent council service, Pavrin clicked the lever once. He had started using it as a junior registrar because he liked hearing commitments become physical. Click. A cruiser. Click. A carrier. Click. A battleship. Years later, the device was almost smooth from his thumb. The number displayed in its tiny window represented the active capital hulls currently assigned to Unified Council Command. Davin stood at the central podium. This incident changes nothing about the strategic facts before us. The human ambassador, Mara. No, Pavrin reminded himself. Not Mara. The ambassador's name was Alina Wardell, sat completely still. Nothing, she asked. One unfortunate death does not permit Earth to destabilize the entire council. Wardell looked up toward the security gallery. Your security forces killed a child under an order you personally issued. A human child. The chamber went quiet. Davin spread his hands. You see insult where I am stating jurisdiction. She was a citizen of Earth. Earth may seek compensation. Earth may seek arbitration. Earth may seek sanctions against responsible officers. But Earth does not possess authority over council security policy. Wardell stared at him. Compensation. Yes, for Iris. That is how civilized governments resolve incidents. Pavrin closed his eyes for half a second. Davin continued. We will not permit human emotionalism to become a pretext for military interference. Several delegates shifted. There it was. The real calculation. Pavrin had heard Davin discuss it privately. Earth had grown too influential. Not through conquest, through credibility. Human warships were respected even by governments that disliked Earth. Human patrol captains had a reputation for arriving when they said they would, leaving when they said they would, and refusing orders they considered incompatible with treaty obligations. That kind of reputation frightened Davin. A reputation could become authority without anyone voting for it. So he had spent 2 years attempting to provoke Earth into proving that humanity was exactly what he claimed. Violent, emotional, dangerous, unable to distinguish a political enemy from an entire civilization. The death on Dock Ring 6 had not been planned. Pavrin was almost certain of that. But once it happened, Davin had understood its usefulness. If Earth retaliated against the council capital, every member government would activate collective defense. If Earth attacked council worlds, Davin could unify fleets that had spent years drifting apart. If Earth demanded the surrender of entire member states, those states would run back beneath council protection. Davin wanted human rage. He needed it. Wardell stood. Earth will answer after we have received instructions. Davin smiled. I assumed it would. You should not. Her delegation left. Earth's answer arrived before the next council day began. It contained no declaration of war, no casualty demand, no surrender terms, no threat against a planet. Pavrin read it 3 times because he was certain he had misunderstood it. The first section formally identified the Council's central executive authority as responsible for the killing of Iris Danner. The second section stated that Earth considered the Council's unified military command a hostile, belligerent organization. The third section was the strange part. Earth simultaneously reaffirmed recognition of every Council member government as an independent sovereign entity. Any member government not participating in military action against Earth would remain at peace with humanity. Any military vessel acting under direct home government authority rather than Central Council command would be treated according to that government's declared status. No inherited guilt. No collective punishment, no assumption that membership meant hostility. Pavrin carried the document straight to Davin. The first convener read it and laughed. They are afraid. I do not think so. They are separating military and civilian targets in advance. That is fear. It is more than that. Davin placed the document on his desk. Registrar, you spend too much time with forms. Those forms are the difference between the Council fleet and dozens of national fleets. Davin's amusement faded slightly. Explain. Pavrin hesitated. Then he pulled the mechanical tally from his pocket. This number is not the number of ships owned by the Council. I know. Do you? The Council owned very few major warships outright. Most had been commissioned by member governments, crewed partly by their citizens, then assigned to Central Command under standing security agreements. The system worked because nobody had expected the distinction to matter during a major war. A ship bearing the Council crest was a Council ship. Politically, that was true. Emotionally, it was true. Operationally, it was almost true. Legally, every hull still had a home. Davin frowned. Earth cannot dissolve our defense structure by writing a letter. No. Pavrin returned the tally to his pocket. But it appears they intend to let our members do it themselves. Davin's eyes hardened. None will. How certain are you? Completely. That frightened Pavrin more than uncertainty would have. The first human warships appeared at Sable orbit 6 hours later. There were no dramatic emergence flashes, no formation announcement, no demand for surrender. The Council home fleet had already deployed beyond the capital moon, its great ships arranged in layered defensive lines. Pavrin stood inside Fleet Registry Control, watching unidentified contacts become verified human hulls. One, then another, then another. Heavy cruisers, battle carriers, armor ships, fast battleships. Their approach vectors made no sense at first. They were not forming an attack wall. They were not concentrating on the Council flagship. They were spreading. Target assignments, Davin demanded over the command channel. Pavrin examined the registry overlay. There are none. Then what are they doing? One human battleship accelerated directly toward the Council dreadnought Everlasting Mandate. The bridge erupted with warnings. Range collapsing. Main battery tracking. Human vessel still accelerating. 5,000 kilometers. 3,000. 2. The Everlasting Mandate rotated its forward weapons. The human ship did not turn away. At the distance where most naval combat was measured in tens of thousands of kilometers, the two vessels were practically touching. The human ship passed beneath the dreadnought's bow, then rolled. Its drives fired, and it settled beside the Council ship. Pavrin stared. The human vessel was so close that the Everlasting Mandate's primary spinal weapons could not meaningfully track it without rotating the entire ship. Its long-range missile cells were nearly useless at that distance. Its heaviest plasma projectors had been designed for standoff combat, not firing across the width of an orbital dock. The human battleship simply remained there, matching thrust, matching rotation, matching every maneuver. Another human ship did the same thing to a Council carrier. Then another, then another. Across the formation, human capital ships drove straight into the Council fleet and attached themselves, not physically, but tactically, to individual warships. Pavrin heard someone whisper behind him, "They're shadowing us." The phrase spread through the command deck. Shadowing. Every Council capital ship acquired a human companion, not at attack range. Inside it, the Council had spent generations designing ships to dominate distant battle space. The humans had parked beside them. "Order them away," Davin snapped. A communications officer transmitted the demand. Admiral Sloane Armitage answered personally. Her image appeared above the central table. She looked older than Pavrin expected. Gray touched the sides of her dark hair. Her uniform carried no ceremonial decorations beyond name and rank. Davin leaned toward the display. "You have entered restricted Council formation space." "Yes." "You will withdraw." "No." Davin seemed almost relieved by the answer. "Then Earth confirms aggression." Armitage's expression did not change. "Earth confirmed a belligerent this morning. You think you can imprison an entire fleet by parking beside it?" "No." "Then what is this?" "A distinction." Davin stared at her. Armitage continued. "Every vessel operating under unified Council authority remains part of the belligerent force responsible for hostile action against Earth. And any vessel recalled by its sovereign home government will cease to be treated as a Council combatant." Pavrin heard several delegates speaking at once behind Davin. Armitage's voice remained level. "We will not pursue ships returning to their own governments. We will not strike member territory that remains neutral. We will not treat citizenship as guilt." Davin laughed once. "You expect our fleets to run. I expect governments to decide whether you still speak for them. You murdered your own strategic position with that statement. Any member may pretend neutrality while supporting us secretly. Then we will deal with what they do. You cannot monitor every government." "No." "You cannot trust them." "No." Davin paused. "Then why offer this?" For the first time, something changed in Armitage's face. Not anger, something colder. "Because a child is dead, Convener. We are not going to answer that by deciding everyone else's children are expendable." Nobody in registry control moved. Davin's smile vanished. He cut the channel. The first recall arrived 37 minutes later. It came from a member government Pavrin would never have chosen, a quiet oceanic republic with a modest fleet and almost no influence in central politics. Its government transmitted a sovereign order recalling 2 cruisers and a carrier from Unified Council service. Davin rejected the transmission. Pavrin stared at him. "You cannot reject a sovereign recall." "I just did. The assignment charter is subordinate to emergency council authority, only during an authorized collective defense condition. We are in one. No collective defense vote has passed." Davin turned. "Do you intend to become a problem?" Pavrin felt the old tally in his pocket. "No." "Good." The 3 recalled ships began moving anyway. Council escorts turned with them. Human shadows moved too. For several tense seconds, 9 capital ships occupied the same tiny region of space. Pavrin expected weapons fire. Instead, something stranger happened. The human battleship shadowing the oceanic carrier rotated away. Its guns stopped tracking the carrier. Its tactical icon changed from red-bordered hostile to neutral gray. The 2 human cruisers shadowing the recalled escorts did the same. They simply let them go. No inspection, no boarding, no demand that they fight the council. The 3 former council ships accelerated toward their home system. Davin ordered pursuit. The remaining council ships began to turn. Human shadows turned with them. Suddenly the fleet understood. Earth was not protecting defectors with a distant perimeter. It was making punishment physically expensive. Any council capital ship attempting to chase a recalled vessel had a human warship already beside it. The humans did not have to cross a battlefield. They were already there. Davin transmitted a fleet-wide order. All unified vessels will maintain assigned formation. Unauthorized departure will be treated as desertion. Pavrin looked at the registry. 3 ships no longer carried central assignment codes. He reached into his pocket, pressed the small release lever. The tally clicked backward. Once, again. He had never used it that way before. By the end of the hour, a second government-issued recalls. Then a third. The Council Propaganda Bureau called them isolated acts. A 4th recall arrived while the statement was still being distributed. Then 2 more. Some governments recalled only ships. Others suspended financial contributions. One withdrew its delegates from emergency sessions, but left civilian offices operating. Another announced that it remained politically aligned with the Council, but would not participate in military action arising from Iris Danner's death. Earth accepted every distinction. That was the devastating part. Davin had built his authority on absolutes. Member or traitor, council or enemy, obedience or collapse. Earth answered with categories: neutral, non-belligerent, humanitarian, home command, council command, civil administration, military enforcement. Pavrin spent his entire professional life creating distinctions like those. He had never imagined distinctions could become weapons. Davin summoned him to the command chamber. "How many?" Pavrin knew what he meant. He looked at the tally. "Enough. How many ships have withdrawn?" Pavrin gave him the number. Davin swore. "Stop changing the registry." "I am not changing it. You are removing council assignments. Their governments removed them. They are still our ships. They were never ours." The room went silent. Davin stepped closer. "Be very careful." Pavrin had served 7 first conveners. He had survived 3 constitutional crises and 1 assassination attempt that had nothing to do with him. He had learned when to lower his eyes. This time he did not. "The Council has forces," he said. "Member governments have ships." Davin struck the table with his palm. "Semantics. No ownership. We are at war. With Earth. With anyone aiding Earth. None of those governments are aiding Earth. They are leaving. That aids Earth." Pavrin almost laughed, but fear stopped him. Davin had reached the logical end of his own politics. Neutrality was treason, because obedience was the only condition he recognized. Outside the viewport, another council cruiser changed its transponder. The great central crest vanished from its identification field. Its homeworld emblem replaced it. The human ship beside it peeled away. Pavrin reached into his pocket. Click. Backward again. Davin tried money next. He froze member reserve accounts. Several governments withdrew faster. He threatened to suspend mutual defense coverage. Earth announced that it would respect existing bilateral non-aggression agreements, with any government declaring neutrality. He threatened to seize recalled vessels before they could leave. Human shadows closed even tighter. He ordered the arrest of withdrawing delegates. That almost changed everything. Pavrin was in the grand chamber when security teams entered. Delegates were standing, shouting, transmitting final statements to their home governments. The council crest glowed above them. Davin appeared on every wall. Emergency authority is now in effect. No delegation may depart until the security status of its government is determined. Doors locked. For one moment, Pavrin thought Davin had succeeded. Then Ambassador Wardell stood in the human observation gallery. Earth's delegation technically had no voting rights during the emergency session. Wardell raised her communicator. Admiral, Armitage answered over the chamber speakers. I'm here. Davin's face hardened. You will not interfere with internal council security. Armitage's reply came immediately. We are not entering your chamber. Then remain silent. No. The main display changed. A tactical image of Sable Orbit appeared. Hundreds of ship icons surrounded the capital. Human shadows. Council hulls. Departing home fleets. Armitage spoke. Every government represented in that chamber has a fleet element currently operating near ours. Delegates stopped shouting. If a delegation is detained for declaring neutrality, Earth will regard any attempt to use its home fleet against that government as coercive military action. Davin sneered. You are threatening war to protect politicians. We are already at war with your central command. You cannot protect every delegate. I don't need to. The tactical display zoomed in. Pavrin understood before Davin did. The delegates were not the leverage. Their governments were. Arresting them could not stop recalls. Killing them could not return ships to council authority. The system no longer depended on bodies in the chamber. It depended on governments choosing to remain. Davin had locked the doors after the room had ceased to matter. One of the delegates began laughing. Not loudly, almost helplessly. Security officers looked toward Davin's image, then toward the delegates. No one moved. Open the doors, Pavrin said. The security commander stared at him. You have no authority. No. Pavrin took the tally from his pocket. But neither does he. He clicked the lever backward again. A new withdrawal had just arrived. The sound was tiny. Davin heard it. What was that? Pavrin looked at the little machine in his palm. Another fleet going home. The chamber doors opened. The council home fleet had become less than half of what it had been that morning. Davin still controlled the strongest core. Those ships came from governments tied closely to his office through security appointments, debt agreements, and political patronage. Their crews were loyal. Their admirals were loyal. Their weapons were loaded, and the humans were still parked beside them. Admiral Armitage's flagship, the Earth Navy battleship Resolute, Pavrin disliked the name, but he admitted it fit, held position beside Davin's command dreadnought, Sovereign Measure. The two ships were close enough that standard fleet doctrine called the geometry irresponsible. Armitage seemed comfortable with it. Davin was not. Every attempt to maneuver created the same problem. If Sovereign Measure accelerated, Resolute accelerated. If it rolled, the human ship rolled. If it tried to open distance, the human ship closed it. Smaller council weapons could track at close range. They simply lacked the force to guarantee a quick kill against a human battleship built around absurd layers of compartmentalization and armor. Heavy weapons could kill Resolute, but only if Sovereign Measure gained distance and firing geometry. Armitage refused to give it either. It was not elegant warfare. That may have been why council officers hated it so much. They had trained for formations, engagement envelopes, overlapping fields, predictive exchanges. The humans had reduced their glorious dreadnought to something trapped in a narrow alley with a larger, angrier animal. Pavrin joined Davin aboard Sovereign Measure when the first convener transferred his government to the flagship. It was the moment Pavrin knew the council was dying. Governments confident in their legitimacy did not flee their own chambers for battleships. Davin stood on the command deck beneath the council crest. Status. An officer answered. Additional recalls. Ignore them. Convener. Several are from governments contributing ships still in our formation. They are council vessels. Pavrin said nothing. He no longer needed to. Everyone on the deck knew. Davin pointed toward the tactical display. Break the human shadow. The flagship commander hesitated only long enough to calculate. Method. Accelerate toward the outer formation. Force them to choose between collision and separation. The commander issued the maneuver. Sovereign measure surged forward. Resolute surged with it. The human ship remained beside them. The flagship rolled hard. Resolute crossed beneath. Sovereign measure reversed thrust. Resolute matched. The two massive ships danced around each other with distances that made Pavrin's stomach tighten. The humans were better. Not technologically magical. Not impossible. Simply better. Their thrusters fired in short, violent corrections. Their hull rolled without wasting movement. Their bridge crew seemed to anticipate where sovereign measure wanted space and occupy it first. After several minutes, the council commander stopped trying. Davin turned on him. Why have we stopped? Because the next maneuver risks collision. Then risk it. With respect, Convener, they may want us to. Armitage appeared on a side display. I don't. Davin spun. You are monitoring this channel. You invited my ship into visual range. This is your last opportunity to withdraw. Armitage looked tired now. You have said that several times. I still control enough firepower to destroy you. Yes. That answer unsettled him. Pavrin saw it. Davin had expected denial. Armitage gave him none. You admit it. If you are willing to spend your flagship doing it. I am. No, Armitage said. You are willing to spend everyone aboard it. Davin stepped toward the screen. You think that girl gives you moral authority over me. Armitage went very still. Iris Danner gives me nothing. The bridge quieted. She had a name before you killed her. She does not become a political tool because she is dead. Davin's face tightened. You are using her death to dismantle this council. No. Armitage looked toward something off-screen. Your members are doing that. Another ship disappeared from the unified formation. Pavrin's hand moved automatically. Click. Backward. Davin heard it. His eyes found Pavrin. Give me that. Pavrin closed his fingers around the tally. No. The word surprised everyone, including him. Davin crossed the deck. You are an officer of the council. I am a registrar. You serve this government. I record which governments serve it. Davin reached for the tally. Pavrin stepped back. It was a tiny act, ridiculous beside battleships. But Davin stopped, perhaps because the entire command deck was watching. Pavrin looked at the display. Another recall. Davin turned. A heavy carrier had separated from formation. Its human shadow was already moving away. The carrier's council crest disappeared from the tactical board. Its national identifier returned. Pavrin clicked the tally. Davin's voice became quiet. Order them destroyed. The flagship commander looked at him. The carrier. Yes. They are withdrawing to their home jurisdiction. They are deserting during war. The commander's hands remained on the console. Unlike the admirals of some dramatic history, he did not refuse. He followed the order. Sovereign measure began turning its heavy forward batteries. The departing carrier was still too distant for point defense weapons. Long-range batteries started charging. Resolute moved. Not away. Closer. The human battleship slid across Sovereign Measure's firing line. Davin smiled. At last. Pavrin's mouth went dry. The flagship commander looked toward him. Convener. Fire. Sovereign Measure fired. The first strike crossed less than 1,000 kilometers. Resolute disappeared behind a bloom of energy. The command deck erupted in cheers. Pavrin did not. The tactical icon remained. Damaged. Still present. Then the image cleared. The human battleship's forward armor was scorched. One external sensor cluster had vanished. Vapor streamed from a damaged section near its bow. But the ship was still moving, still between Sovereign Measure and the departing carrier. Armitage returned to the screen. Emergency lights illuminated her bridge. Someone behind her was shouting damage reports. She looked directly at Davin. "Now it is our turn." The response lasted seconds. Resolute's broadside flashed. Pavrin grabbed the edge of the console as Sovereign Measure lurched. The humans did not target the bridge. They did not target habitation sections. They did not tear through the central hull. Their fire struck the external drive assemblies, maneuvering clusters, and exposed power transfer structures feeding the dreadnought's propulsion spine. Warning panels ignited across the bridge. The stars outside stopped rotating. Sovereign Measure had lost thrust. Not life support. Not pressure. Not gravity. Motion. One controlled salvo had taken the Council's greatest command ship and turned it into a building. Resolute drifted past its bow. Damaged. Smoking atmosphere through sealed external compartments. Still under control. Still protecting the departing carrier. Davin stared at the tactical display. Return fire. The flagship commander checked his board. Firing geometry is lost. Use secondary batteries. Human point defense is intercepting. Then maneuver. We cannot. Restore propulsion. Not quickly. Davin slammed both hands against the console. Do something. Nobody answered. Around them, the rest of the unified fleet watched the Council flagship stop. Then the recalls accelerated. Not because admirals suddenly rebelled. Not because crews mutinied. Because governments saw that the Council could no longer force them to remain. Homeworld orders arrived. Assignment charters ended. Ships changed transponders. Human shadows peeled away. One after another. Again. 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 Pavrin stopped clicking the tally. There were too many. He held the lever down and watched the number unwind. The Council did not fall in a battle. That would have been easier to understand. Its planets did not burn. Its species did not vanish. Its cities remained exactly where they had been. Restaurants opened. Factories changed shifts. Children went to school. Freighters complained about docking fees. Weather moved over continents that did not care about flags. What disappeared was the assumption that all of those places belonged to one political voice. By the next morning, most member governments had suspended unified military participation. By afternoon, several formally withdrew from the Council. Others declared provisional independence from central executive authority, pending constitutional review. The Treasury froze because no official could determine which contributions the remaining Council government still possessed legal authority to spend. Foreign embassies began changing their recognition protocols. Not because Earth ordered them to, because nobody knew who the Council represented anymore. Davin attempted to issue a statement from Sovereign Measure. Most networks carried it under his personal name rather than his former title. That, Pavrin thought, was when Malric Davin finally understood. A title existed only because other people agreed to repeat it. The home government that had originally appointed him revoked his diplomatic authority that evening. It also requested his return to face inquiry over Iris Danner's death and the subsequent use of its military personnel. Earth did not demand custody. Admiral Armitage transmitted a single response. Provided he is not transferred to another military command, Earth will not interfere. Pavrin read the sentence twice. Davin had spent days telling everyone that humanity wanted revenge. Earth would not even take him. The surviving crew of Sovereign Measure removed the Council crest from their command authentication screens. They did not arrest Davin dramatically. They simply informed him he no longer possessed authority aboard their national vessel. For the first time since Pavrin had known him, Malric Davin had nowhere official to stand. The Grand Chamber met one final time. Not as the Council. That distinction mattered. Representatives gathered to arrange the ordinary problems created by the collapse of a government. Navigation agreements, debt, shared scientific stations, prisoner transfers, pensions, medical licensing, border arbitration, all the boring pieces that survived grand political endings. Pavrin sat at the registrar's desk. The Council crest still glowed over the chamber. Nobody had bothered to turn it off. Ambassador Wardell attended for Earth. Admiral Armitage did not. She remained with the fleet. Pavrin appreciated that. Warships had done their part. Now other people had to decide what came after them. The former member governments agreed to create temporary working conferences for specific shared functions. No central executive, no unified war authority, no automatic military assignments. Some delegates predicted they would eventually build another union. Others swore they never would. Earth took no position. Near the end of the session, an administrative clerk approached Pavrin. "We need the final fleet registry." Pavrin looked down. His console still displayed a category labeled Council Unified Command. Under it there were no active capital hulls. None. For 19 years, Pavrin had filled that category. He had corrected names, transferred assignments, retired old hulls, commissioned new ones. The Council fleet had seemed permanent because there had always been another ship. Now the field was empty. The clerk waited. "What do I enter?" Pavrin removed the mechanical tally from his pocket. Its window showed nothing assigned. He placed it beside the console. Then he selected the administrative status field. Active, suspended, disputed, dissolved. He chose the last one. The system asked for confirmation. Pavrin confirmed. Across hundreds of navigation offices, embassies, military registries, customs stations, and diplomatic databases, the same update propagated. Council Unified Command ceased to be an active sovereign military identifier. The great crest above the chamber flickered. Someone in systems control finally noticed the change. The three interlocked arcs vanished. Nothing replaced them. Pavrin expected applause. There was none. People simply continued working. Earth held a memorial for Iris Danner 3 days later. It was small. That surprised the galaxy more than the fleet operation had. No warships fired ceremonial weapons. No politician used her name to announce a new doctrine. Her family asked that the service remain private. Earth respected the request. Pavrin did not attend. He had never known her. Instead, he went to Dock Ring 6. The White School shuttle was gone. Repairs had removed the emergency barriers. Dock crews moved cargo through the corridor again. Travelers hurried past carrying bags and arguing about departure times. Normal life had reclaimed the place. Pavrin stood there for several minutes. Ambassador Wardell found him. "You came. I was nearby." "No, you were." Pavrin looked at her. Human diplomats, he had learned, could be irritatingly observant. He touched the tally in his pocket. "I keep thinking about what Davin expected. War. He got war. Yes, but not the one he designed." Wardell leaned against the observation rail. "He thought anger would make the decision for us." "Were you angry?" She looked toward the empty docking point. "Yes." Pavrin waited. She offered nothing else. "So how did Earth choose?" "Poorly at first." He frowned. Wardell almost smiled. "You think governments become wise when someone dies?" "No." "Good." She folded her arms. Half the first proposals sent to the cabinet were exactly what Davin wanted. Strike the capital, seize the council stations, treat every unified fleet as enemy, punish anyone who helped them. What changed? Someone asked what Iris had done. Pavrin looked at her. She was a student. Yes. She had no part in council policy. Yes. I don't understand. That was the point. Wardell's voice was quiet. If we believed Iris did not deserve to die for something Earth had done, then we could not claim children on council worlds deserved to die for something Davin had done. Pavrin looked through the glass. A passenger shuttle drifted into the berth. "So you separated the council from its members." "We tried." "You knew they would leave." "No." That surprised him. "You risked the war on a possibility. We risked it on a boundary." "What boundary?" "We would fight the people fighting us." Pavrin considered that. And if every member had stayed, then every member fleet would have remained hostile. You would have fought all of them. Yes. There was no pride in the answer. That made it heavier. Pavrin touched the tally again. "You could have lost." "Yes." "You say that very easily." Wardell looked at him. "Everyone says humans are frightening because we think we can win impossible wars. Is that wrong?" "Usually." She nodded toward the docking ring. "The frightening decisions are the ones you make before you know whether they work. Weeks passed. The galaxy did not become peaceful because one council disappeared. Several former members argued over borders almost immediately. Two disputed ownership of an old military station. Trade inspections became slower. A customs standard that had once applied automatically now required separate agreements. Pavrin spent most of his days answering questions from officials who had spent years complaining about council bureaucracy, and now desperately wanted to know where the bureaucracy had gone. Earth did not replace it. That disappointed some governments. It frightened others. Davin's allies had predicted that humanity intended to destroy the council, so Earth could become the new center of power. Instead, human diplomats kept refusing offices they had not asked for. Admiral Armitage withdrew most of her fleet once central military authority ceased to exist. A smaller force remained until every former council ship had reached its declared home jurisdiction. Then those ships left too. There were arguments on Earth about whether Armitage had been too restrained. Pavrin learned this from public broadcasts. Some humans wanted Davin extradited. Some wanted reparations from every former council member. Some believed Earth should have occupied the capital. Others thought the fleet should never have been sent. Humanity, Pavrin discovered, did not achieve unity by agreeing. It merely possessed a remarkable ability to continue functioning while disagreeing loudly. His own future was less clear. There was no council fleet to register. His office technically no longer existed. One morning, the new Interim Administrative Bureau offered him a position cataloging the independent fleets of the former member governments. Pavrin accepted, not because he believed the new system would be better, because ships still needed names, governments still needed records. Someone still had to know which flag meant what. His first assignment took him back to Sable Orbit. The former Council Dreadnought Sovereign Measure was being repaired enough to travel home. It would never return to frontline service. The human salvo had damaged its propulsion structures too extensively for economical restoration as a capital warship. Its home government planned to convert the vessel into an orbital training platform. Pavrin boarded to supervise the registry transfer. The bridge looked different. The huge council crest had been removed from the forward bulkhead. Davin's command platform was gone. National officers worked around temporary consoles, while technicians traced new lines through open deck panels. A young officer met Pavrin near the registry station. "We are ready for reassignment." Pavrin connected his terminal. "Current vessel name, Sovereign Measure. Keeping it." The officer made a face. "No." Pavrin almost laughed. "What will replace it? We haven't decided. That creates paperwork. I apologize." "You do not." "No." Pavrin entered the ownership transfer. Former authority, Council Unified Command. The field flashed. Invalid entity. He stared at it. The database no longer recognized the Council as an active sovereign owner. For 19 years, Pavrin had believed the Council made ships real by entering them into its registry. Now the registry was telling him the Council itself was no longer real enough to own one. He changed the field. Previous authority, dissolved polity. Accepted. The transfer completed. The young officer exhaled. "That is it. That is it. I expected more. Everyone does." Pavrin disconnected his terminal. As he turned to leave, he noticed a technician working outside the forward viewport on the exterior hull. The Council crest had once been painted across the upper armor in enormous white arcs. Most of it had already been removed. Beneath the old paint, the original hull metal was brighter than everything around it, protected for years from radiation and dust. The technician finished stripping the final section. A tug fired outside. The great ship began moving away from Sable Orbit under the markings of the world that had built it. No Council crest followed. Only a clean rectangle of bare metal remained where it had been.